Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly for December 2nd, 2019. I'm Katney. I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python designed to run on tiny computers called microcontrollers, and it is designed to make getting started with electronics and programming super simple. This is the time of the week where we gather with our community to talk about um, the state of CircuitPython, to call people out for any kind of good things they've been doing, and to talk about what we've been up to over the past couple weeks, or past week rather. This meeting normally happens at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on Mondays, except if there is a US holiday, in which case we will sometimes change that meeting. If we do change it, we do notify everyone on Discord. Speaking of Discord, this meeting is held on Discord, and it is also recorded. We record both the audio and the text chat, so be aware that if you are participating in this meeting, you are being recorded. That recording will be posted on YouTube for later consumption, as well as the audio being posted as a podcast. And if you find that it is not available on your favorite podcast service, please let us know. This meeting is held in 5 parts. The first part is community news, which is a look at what's going on in the community in terms of Python and Python on microcontrollers. The next section is the state of CircuitPython and libraries, which is a statistical overview of the project by the numbers. So it just gives us a chance to see where we're at in terms of the project itself. The next section is hug reports, which is a chance to call people out for doing something good. It's sort of our counter to bug reports, and it is held in a round-robin format where I will start and we'll go down the list alphabetically. If you are lurking, please let us know and we'll skip over you. If you are text only or would rather not have your voice recorded, you can post it to the text chat or post it to the notes doc, and we will read it off for you as we go. There is a document that is all the notes for the meeting, and there are timestamps in there. So if you are not so much into watching an entire video, you can check out the notes doc, sort of scan through it, and scrub to the time that is interesting to you. The next section is status updates, which is an opportunity to take a couple minutes, let us know what you've been doing over the past week, what you're going to do over the next week. It is also held in a round-robin format. And again, if you are lurking or text only, let us know and we will skip over you or read off your notes. And the last thing is In the Weeds, which is an opportunity for more long-form discussions. If you have an In the Weeds topic already, please post it to the text chat or the notes document. And if you have one that sort of comes out of status updates, let us know as soon as possible. And so we can get that added. That way we're not waiting around at the end. And that is how this meeting goes. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Phil for community news.
All right. Thank you, Katney. Happy Cyber Monday.
Thank you.
All right. First up, if y'all wanted to know the origins of Moo and hear a little bit about the upcoming book that has CircuitPython and Moo with Ental, who sticks around here and hangs out with us quite a bit, check this out. This is the new book. We have this in our store. We're also helping the author get the word out. It's in Japanese, but that's okay. It makes it even cooler, I think. And you can look at some of the reasons and some of the ways that Nicholas came up with the word Moo. As he said on his blog post, many of the things he has and comes up with has multiple layers, so that was kind of neat to see, and that's in the beginning of the CircuitPython and Moo book. Next up, this is really neat, and I think I did a hug report or a shout out to Jepler, but I'm going to do it again because this is a preview of, oh no, sorry, I'm going to get to that one in a second. This is the next one. Shout out to our team who's doing the so many blue fruits, so many circuits, so many playgrounds, so many Pythons. The Bluefruit Playground app, this is our next version for iOS to start off with, and it allows you to control Circuit Playground Bluefruit with the Nordic chipset NRF52840. And what's really neat about this is you can do lots of things really fast, and within seconds you're pairing, you're able to play music, you can change your neopixels. So I did this video, and this was just for me trying to figure out like how can I record what's going on an iPhone screen and on an overhead at the same time. And I thought this was going to just be like a throwaway test video that I wasn't going to be able to show anyone because like nothing worked, but it worked so well. This was like one take, did it really fast, so I just decided to post it up. So that's it's a like hot off the press beta app that you can check out, and we'll try to get more people on the beta as well. Next up, this was what I was talking about before. We got native MP3 decoding playback in CircuitPython. Go Jepler. I've always wanted to remake the Zune interfaces and some of the old MP3 screens and interfaces myself on an open source music player, and it just kind of wasn't possible, or at least it would just be too crazy to do this. I think on my article series of Open Hardware Month, one of the first things I had was an open source MP3 player from Raphael. He was like one of the pioneers, and it was neat, but there was no screen, and it was just kind of like circuit board. So I thought this would be kind of neat, and so this is the first step, and this is on the NRF as well. So check that video out. We were excited, so we filmed it. Next up, Scott and Tim will probably talk about this later. There is some CircuitPython snake its way to the NXP chips. These are powerful, they're fast, and we're working with Arturo to get this out there as fast as possible to as many people. So expect maybe some software puts it up soon, and you can see some hardware on the Twitters and get a good preview of that. These chips are fast. Next up for the people like hardware, CircuitPython sticks its way to FOMO thanks to tiny USB. If you're into little tiny FPGA and little tiny computers that can plug into a USB port, check out Zob's latest release for CircuitPython that runs on the FOMOs. Had a fun thing on our show and tell last week. Scott showed off a Pi, not a Raspberry Pi, an Apple Pi, and also some of the notifications you can do with Bluetooth and CircuitPython. So this is really neat because you'll be able to take things off your mobile device and put it on a e-ink display or any type of display that supports CircuitPython. So I have a time-coded URL there. You can check it out, and you could look at some of the live things that Scott and Dan were able to do, and also I think Anne. There is a 3-part lecture series, and it's Korean language. On YouTube, and this is really neat. We're starting to see lots and lots of other languages, spoken language that is, using CircuitPython and doing instructional learning. So this one is Raspberry Pi and CircuitPython, which is Blinka. Professor Gallagher posted up a really cool Buddy the Elf project. I wrote about this before, tweeted about it, and had it as a blog post, but this is a full video tutorial and repo that was recently posted. So if you have a Bluefruit, this is a really good project. Do it with kids, do it with anyone, and the hand waving motion and all that, you can have that work with anything. Next up, because tis the season, so this will be one of the few times that we ever have stuff like this. We posted up Ada Deals, and that was all stuff on other people's site that has nothing, that's not Adafruit. And what I did is I tried to find people who did open source hardware, had a sale over this Black Friday, Cyber Monday craziness, and also had Python on hardware. So if you're not, yay, shop with Adafruit, but if you're not, that's fine too. Check out all these deals, and I contacted all the companies, and I thought, well, since we have a pretty popular blog, maybe we can get it all in one spot. So I tagged it Ada Deals. Next up, DigiKey has their DigiWish. If you go to digikey.com/Python, you can look on the Python on hardware there, and all you have to do is tweet pound DigiWish and put in the thing that you want, and they pick a winner every day. They didn't ask me to tell anybody about this. I just thought it was cool. And then tomorrow is Giving Tuesday, and specifically, we're going to have a bunch of stuff on our site, the open source organizations we support and try to do stuff with, and individuals who have Patreons, anyone who's just trying to make things a little bit better. But the PSF is having a Giving Tuesday as well. So I put all the links in the chat here. They haven't posted up what they're doing yet, but look for that on Tuesday. And if you're thinking, even if it's just like $5, there's really great organizations that can use just $10 or $5 or whatever just to keep the stuff going. There's a lot of open source projects that could use your help, and there's also people on GitHub now that can be sponsored. We'll probably post links to all of this stuff. And then, of course, we have our stuff going on our site. We decided let's try to have the biggest sale for CircuitPython. So thank you everyone who supports us throughout the year. This is kind of for everyone else who doesn't know about us or doesn't haven't picked up a board yet. So this is our Blinka cyber stuff that you can check out. It's the entire category. And a lot of this stuff, if you want to read this and more, is in the newsletter. Thank you everyone who's been sending me great Python on hardware news and images and boards and GitHub updates. The newsletter kind of writes itself every week. There's a lot each week, and that's really good. A lot of stuff takes a couple weeks to get into the newsletter because there's so many things. And if you just want to read it, you can get it on Adafruit daily, and that is a good summary of all the things going on in the community every single week. And that's community news.
Thanks, Phil.
Oof.
All right. Next up is the state of CircuitPython and libraries. This is a statistical overview of the project by the numbers. Gives us a chance to see what's going on outside of what it is that we're seeing. We'll talk about it overall, and then we will get into more specifics with the core and with the libraries after that. So overall, we had 10 pull requests merged by 7 authors. There's a few new names in there that I don't recognize, which is Sarfata, Ian Pawa, and Osterwood. So thank you to our new contributors. And we had 6 reviewers, and thank you to everyone who's been reviewing as well. We had 17 issues closed by 8 people and 16 opened by 13 people, which it's nice to see that number really high because it means that we have a lot of people that are actually doing things and finding issues. So that's excellent. Overall, we are currently working on 5.0. We recently released beta 0, which so far has been pretty stable. So please try it out. Let us know if you find anything. That's obviously the whole reason that we put it out there when we do, is to make sure that we can get as much testing done on that outside of us as possible. With the libraries, we have been moving towards a different CI system, which is something that's slowly happening, but will be happening more quickly over the next little bit of time here. And we're hoping that that makes a better experience for everybody who's contributing, as well as just a better experience overall. So that is where we are pretty much overall. Like I said, please try out all of our new setups and try it out on your projects and let us know if there's something about your project that fails, and we can help you figure it out and also make sure that it's not something on our end. So with that, I will hand it over to Scott to talk about the core.
Awesome. Thank you, Kattni. Take a time code and move closer to the mic. All right. So we had, in the last week, we had 3 pull requests merged from Pawa, Sarfata, and Dan Halbert. Thank you to all those authors, especially the first 2, who I believe are new. And a shout out to Jeff Epler, who's a new reviewer on here. He's done some reviews before, but is definitely starting to pick up a lot of reviews. So really appreciate that. We had 3 total reviewers. Myself and Dan were the other 2. We have 11 open pull requests. The oldest is 120 days old, and the newest is 0 days old. If you want to see a full list of all the open pull requests, check out the note stock, and it'll be there. Issues-wise, we had 7 closed issues by 4 people and 8 open by 7 people, for a total of 202 open issues. So once again, we are the the reason we're growing issues-wise, but that's okay. The libraries cover that fact. And we have a link to the issues in the note stock as well. We have 7 active milestones. Most of our bugs are designated with a milestone, except for 5, which are those that need to be triaged, and we should get those assigned a milestone. Downloads-wise, we have a breakdown by board and by language in the note stock, but I will just talk about the totals here. 4.0 is our latest stable. It's been out for a while. We've had 20,338 downloads of that so far, And Beta 0 is our latest unstable, and that's relatively new, a week or two old. And we've had 519 downloads of that. So as always, stable sees a lot more downloads than unstable. But it as Kattni said earlier, it is actually Beta 0 is pretty reliable. So we recommend that people give it a try if you're comfortable with CircuitPython and want to give us a hand. Testing is a great way to get going on that. So that's it for the core.
Thanks, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up, we'll talk about the libraries. So this is information over all of the libraries that we have, which I believe is currently 196. So we have 7 pull requests merged by 4 authors and 4 reviewers. Thank you to everybody who's contributing there. And we currently have 27 open pull requests. Definitely, this is something that once we've gotten past the holidays and gotten past that rush, we need to start going through these and seeing what to do with the ones that have been around for a long time. But feel free to take a look at any of those if you are interested in getting started with reviewing. We had 10 closed issues by 5 people and 8 open by 6 people, leaving 132 open issues. If you are interested in seeing that list, you can go to circuitpython.org/contributing. That site has a lot of information available in terms of the libraries, all the open pull requests, all the open issues, and all the library infrastructure issues, which are issues that are based on, we have a set of standards that we like to keep our libraries at. And if those standards aren't met, we have a series of checks that let us know. We try to label good first issues for issues that would work if you are new to CircuitPython or new to Git and GitHub. We have guides that show you how to get started with Git and GitHub. So if you're interested in starting to contribute to CircuitPython, working on issues on the libraries is a great place to start. And we, of course, are always here to help you get started. So you can join us on Discord if you want to be able to talk to us live, or you can file an issue on GitHub and we can help you out there. We had a number of updated libraries over the past week, a long enough list that I will not be reading it off, but it is in the notes doc and also available on circuitpython.org/libraries. Next up is Hug Reports. Hug Reports is a chance to call people out for doing something good. It's sort of our counter to bug reports in a sense that we try to make sure that we let people know the positive things that they're doing as well, and it gives us a chance to just call people out for doing excellent things. It is held in a round-robin format. I will start as an example, which I just realized I don't have any notes in there. I will start as an example, and then we'll move down the list alphabetically. Then if you're lurking, let us know, so we'll skip over you. If you are notes only, let us know so that we can read off your Hug Reports for you, and we will work our way through the list. And sometimes there are people who have notes in the document who are not attending the meeting, and we'll read those off alphabetically as well as though they were here. So I will get started, as I did not actually put anything in the notes. I want to give a Hug Report to Dan for a discussion about BLE. I'm working on a project right now, and it's the first Bluetooth CircuitPython project that I've worked on. And so I had a lot of questions, and Dan has answered all of them amazingly well. So thank you very much for that. I want to thank Melissa for taking notes for today's meeting. I normally take notes, but it's difficult to do that when running the meeting because then there's a lot of typing in the background. So thank you very much for handling that for me. And other than that, group hug to everyone. Thank you to our community for being amazing. And please continue to do so. So next up is Crayola.
So my Hugs today are to Katney for a fun Hack Friday, as opposed to Black Friday. Instead of going out and shopping or shopping online, spend the day working on LED animations together, and also for her moral support as I continue to try to get the Pixel Buff library working properly, although I'm finding it still kind of broken right now.
All right. Next up is Maker Melissa.
I just wanted to give a group hug to everyone and hope everyone had a great weekend.
All right, excellent. Next up, I have some notes in the document from Stargirl, who said, group hug, especially to the CircuitPython maintainers who have been reviewing my changes. And next up is Scott.
Hello. First, I have a hug report to Arturo182 for leading the way on the IMX RT. Artur has been posting some really awesome teasers on Twitter about IMX RT form factor feathers, which are looking really exciting. I'm super excited to get my hands on CircuitPython on those devices, so can't wait. Thanks, Artur. Thanks to KJW and Jerry N for helping folks in CircuitPython over the weekend. I was super busy and just not working over the weekend, so it was nice to catch up last night and see that everybody had gotten some responses and really appreciate that. Shout out to Jeff Epler for the MP3 work. Really excited to see audio get pushed forwards with all that. And lastly, a thanks to Zobs for getting CircuitPython running on the FOMU FPGA board. There's a lot of potential to see CircuitPython on FPGAs, and Zobs is the first person to do it. So congrats, and thanks to all those folks.
All right, excellent. Next up, I have some notes from Brent, who says, group hug. Hug to Arturo for the IMX RT work, to C. Grover for new feather wings, and to Stargirl for discussion on CircuitPython about profiling code. Got me thinking about a few libraries I wrote in the past and approaches for speeding them up, Tiny LoRa specifically. All right, and next I have notes from C. Grover, who is text only today. Hugs to PT for lightning quick responses to some logo permission requests that help move a few Hackaday IO contests project forward to submittal. And group hug to the team and community. Again, the superb level of CircuitPython documentation helped me out of a few black holes this past week. And next up is Dan.
Okay. I want to thank Jerry for doing BLE testing over the weekend, over the holidays and over the weekend, and immediately found that there were some Learn guides, which we had, there were some Learn guides in the process of being updated, but there are some newer ones that we hadn't gotten to submit PRs for updating yet. So he submitted those. Thank you very much, Jerry. And thanks to Jeff Epler, who's continuing to like pick up, fill in a lot of puzzle pieces that we hadn't gotten around to, which is really great. And also, in the meantime, doing substantial things like getting MP3 decoding starting to work, which will be fantastic. Okay.
All right. We have a couple lurkers, so next up is Hair Effect.
Hi, just a group hug to everyone this week, coming out of Thanksgiving. So,
excellent.
Thanks to everyone.
All right. Now I have notes from Jacob T, who is text only. Hug to Scott for quickly finding and fixing the bug with bitmap fonts on e-ink. Can't wait to try it out with the new release. And next up is Jeff.
Hi. As I so often do, I want to thank everybody who's reviewing PRs, and especially to Scott. I appreciated some of the requests, changes that you requested, and as always, that pull request is going to end up in a better place. And PT mentioned this, but Giving Tuesday is tomorrow, and I want to thank everybody who plans to support a good cause. I want to thank Lady Ada for approving a pull request into the Arduino library Adafruit MP3, which let us reuse it in CircuitPython, and that really just made the whole process go faster than I would have imagined. And thanks to her and to PT for featuring my MP3 work in a video. And I'm excited about the idea of making an MP3 player. as well. So everybody's going to have fun with this. Can't wait to get it finished.
All right. Excellent. Next up is Jerry.
Hi. Thanks. Yeah. Well, just hugged everybody who's been producing all these great new guides for the CircuitPython, Bluefruit, and the other BLE demos. They've been lots of fun, and they've been coming out fast and furious. And especially thanks to Dan for all the quick updates to all those guides as well, because the timing was tough with the new API coming out about the same time a lot of the guides did.
All right. Excellent. And that is Hug Reports. Thanks, everyone. Next up is Status Updates. This is an opportunity to take a couple minutes, let us know what you've been working on over the past week since the last meeting. Let us know what you're going to be working on over the course of the next week until the next meeting. We love to hear about whatever it is you're working on. It doesn't have to be CircuitPython related. It is a round robin again, which will work exactly the same way. I will start, we'll go through, read notes for people who are text only or who are not attending the meeting but have notes. This is also an opportunity to get some tips and tricks on what it is you're doing. So if you have any quick questions, feel free to ask them. And if you find that you have something that might turn into a longer form discussion, we can move it to In the Weeds and discuss it after status updates. So feel free to also offer any kind of support or information to others as we go through the list. So with that, I will get started. Last week, I updated the ADI motion and temperature featherwing guide with a new fritzing object and fab print. That was, it's actually an Adafruit IO guide, but it's the only guide we have for that particular featherwing. So we added a downloads page to it. So you can now get the PCBs for that, and the schematics and so on are now available. Fixed a typo in a code snippet in the CircuitPython Essentials Guide servo page. Thank you again to Jerry for finding that. I updated the first guide I ever wrote, which was Circuit Playground Express Piano in the Key of Lime, and it was not as out of date as I expected. So that was an added bonus. There wasn't that much to change. The stuff that was out of date was very out of date. It still referenced CircuitPython 2.0, but that's been fixed. And also I tested it on the Circuit Playground Bluefruit with the new Circuit Playground Bluefruit module that's part of the Circuit Playground library, and it worked perfectly. So that was also good. I verified all the BLE related guides that I wrote all now match the new API. I prepped Stemma OLED fritzings for Lemore to do some magic. The way that fritzing objects are created, it renders only one side of the board, and the Stemma connectors are always on the opposite side of the board from the display. So we have to do a little bit of magic to make the fritzing object work so you can actually connect wires to the Stemma connectors, and that's something that Lemore takes care of. So I prepped those for her. And then started working on a Circuit Playground Bluefruit project. The eventual plan is to have one controlling another with the central Circuit Playground changing colors and switching between animations on the peripheral and using accelerometer and buttons. So what I got done so far was added animations to the Adafruit CircuitPython LED animations library. We have Color Cycle, Blink, Comet, and Sparkle. I have the accelerometer changing the colors of the animations while the animations are running live. The slide switch turns off the LEDs and animations on both. The buttons on the central are sending button packets to the peripherals, so I can start using those buttons as inputs. I found an issue that is apparently worth filing about sending packets too quickly, and I managed to get the code on the central to crash to the hard fault handler consistently. So that is that is what I managed to do last week. So this week, I need to file an issue on the BLE library to determine whether it's worth changing how the ring buffer overflow is handled. That's what is happening when you send packets too quickly. I need to file an issue on the CircuitPython repo regarding the hard fault handler crash. And then this week, I'll be finishing the Circuit Playground Bluefruit project. I need to get the buttons switching between animations and freezing the color. figure out how to take a chunk of error handling code in the central code and make it only occur once versus being in every section. Right now it's in there about 6 times. I think by the time I'm done, it would be in there 8 or 10 times. And so I have to figure out how better to deal with that. And then I need to put in a PR for the animations library, as that is all new code that is being added to that. So that has to go in, and then I need to write a guide. And so for the most part, other than random support stuff that comes up, this project is what I will be working on this week. And that is my status update. So next up is Crayola.
So last week I got PixelBuff's changes working, including iterable support and native fill. These are sort of the last few things needed to make it so subclasses of PixelBuff can be very lightweight. So for example, NeoPixel has almost no methods on the class anymore if using PixelBuff. Unfortunately, to make that work properly, including a native show method that's subclassable, I had to go and change the signature of the subscript internal throughout the code base. I'm still looking for some feedback on the PR and about ways to avoid that. I spent many hours looking through the code trying to find a way not to change the signature everywhere. So if someone else can think of something, that'd be great. Spent a lot of time fighting battles with GitLab Actions to make that happy, and moved on a bit to start making .star and NeoPixel compatible with the new PixelBuff API, which also involved fighting with Travis and remembering that you have to use Pylon 192 and Python 3.6, or you will have you will not be able to satisfy either. Then also worked with Kattni on the Adafruit-led animation library to do non-blocking pretty things on strips of LEDs and make it easy for people to use. This week, I'm going to I'm going to fix the merge conflicts for the PixelBuff changes, fix the bug I forgot with slices with steps greater than 1, returning an index error, continue testing the NeoPixel changes and .star changes, including trying to figure out how to test or what's needed to test the NeoPixel SPI class that has shown up in the NeoPixel module. And then, time permitting, move on to the final piece, which is to get PyPixelBuff to match the new PixelBuff APIs and test .star and NeoPixels on a board that can't fit PixelBuff and see if the two will even fit.
All right, thanks. Next up is Maker Melissa.
Hello. Okay, so last week I finished updating the libraries that are using Display.io to work with both CircuitPython 4 and 5. They were using the refresh soon and the wait for frame, and I have them use in a try block, so it works better. I fixed an issue with the RA8875 driver that had some incorrect size calculations that a user noticed. And so now that's all correct. I caught up on a lot of miscellaneous PRs and issues, and this morning I submitted a PR for Blinka to work on a secondary I2C port using the same pins, because what would happen is it only checked pins for different ports, but didn't really have a way of dealing with ports that use the same pins. And this week I'm going to work on the IS31FL3731 pillow example and update the guide and update PyBadger to work better with external fonts, because it kind of wants to work with either internal or external, and it kind of messes up its calculations. I need to look further into that. And that's it.
All right, excellent. Next up, I have notes for Stargirl, who last week made the MicroPython.native decorator no-op if support isn't compiled, which makes writing drivers that can take advantage of the speedups a little easier. and assembled 4 beta Winterbloom Soul modules. This week, working on sample code and guides for my beta testers. And next up is Scott.
Hello. Last week was very short, largely, because we in the US had Thanksgiving. So I was out Thursday, Friday, and kind of Wednesday when I was making a pie. So in the few days I did have, I was working on polishing up an ANCS demo, which is the Apple Notification Center service. Basically, it tells you all of the things that are on your lock screen, all of the pending notifications you have. And so I have a demo where you can see the most recent notification from any of a whitelist of apps on an e-ink screen. This week, I'm going to be checking that code in, or at least making a PR for it, and also tweaking it to be an example on the TFT gizmo rather than the e-ink gizmo, which will change some of the timing requirements, whereas the e-ink, you can only refresh so often, but the TFT, you have a lot more support. When Dan and I kind of line up on bonding, we'll get that all going. Make sure that it gets done soon, because right now with ANCS you need to be paired, and so every time you connect your phone, you have to click through the process of pairing. So bonding will make it so that if your phone and the Circuit Playground or whatever reconnect, it can it can automatically repair again because it's bonded. I'll probably take a look at the Apple Media Service, which is pretty simple, and it can tell you what song you're playing and allow you to control the playback. So I'll probably take a look at that as well, just because it should be pretty simple and pretty similar. And then I hope to also get back to the HID debugging that we were doing. That'll probably go in the PR with the ANCS stuff as well, even if it doesn't work on iOS. So I'll be taking a look at that. And then lastly, I'm going to look at kicking off our 2020 planning. For those of you new to the community, we basically do a call for people to blog or post about what they think they'd like to see for CircuitPython in 2020. And then once all of those kind of get out for individuals, I will summarize it and post it on the Adafruit blog as kind of what the highlights of those things are. So I'm hoping to kick that off, and we'll come up with a timeline there as well. First thing for me to do there is just take a look at what exact timing I had last year. So that's my week. I'm sure it will change, but that's my plan so far.
Excellent, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Next, I have some notes from Brent. Last week, starting to wrap up a larger Adafruit project, guide will be published for it this week. Published the IoT monthly newsletter for December 2019 went out yesterday. This week, IO support, wrapping project, finishing out the semester, and working on an ongoing term project. Next up, I have notes from C. Grover, who is text only. So last week, wrapped up the 6 Featherwing projects for the Hackaday IO Take Flight with Feather contest. Funny how ideas for new Featherwings just pop out of nowhere. Racked the brain cells to write some Cricket Featherwing testing code in CircuitPython for the Robot Friend plus PyBadge plus Cricket project. Was hoping to take advantage of the existing libraries, but I2C bus competition management became an issue when using the stock Cricket, Seesaw, and PyBadger libraries. Was successful using some of the subclasses, so that will become the path forward. I may create some helpers or a new class to add some frosting. Threw together a drafty graphic of the Cricket Featherwing pinout. Was helpful when walking through the existing library code. There is a link to that in the notes. Exercised the new rechargeable 80-volt lithium brushless motor snow thrower yesterday. Worked great. Couldn't find the SWD port though. Next week, finish the Robot Friend test routines, helpers, and libraries. Build the long-awaited clothes dryer duct temperature gradient monitor. And back into the studio to record a collection of Foley sound effects tracks for a locally produced UFO sci-fi film, hoping to throw in some theremin sounds along with a vibroslap and 2 thunder tubes. And next up is Dan.
Okay, just scrolling here. Okay, so there was a user reported a bug last week that UART.write was messing up on Atmel boards, and it turned out that for quite a while, UART.write has been non-blocking, whereas we meant for it to be blocking. So it would return immediately. So you'd think that you could send more stuff, and it would fill up the buffer too fast. So I fixed that, and the same process in the same PR, I added a timeout property so you can get and set the UART timeout now. And also we took out timeout rights because they were pointless if it was going to be blocking right. There are tons of PRs coming in from all over the place, so I've spent a lot of time just reviewing PRs, which is good. It means a lot of stuff is going on. And as Scott mentioned, we're going to start working on BLE bonding, and I have some sort of cleanup PRs that I need to submit before we actually start working on that. So I'll do that soon. Okay.
All right. Thanks. A couple of lurkers. So next up is Hair Effect.
Did you say me or somebody else?
Yes, I did.
Sorry, you cut out right as you said my name. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So this past week I did nothing, or that is to say, I walked around New York City a lot because that's where I was for Thanksgiving. But did not do anything else due to the holiday. But before that, I've been working on adding some new board support to CircuitPython over the last couple weeks. So the PyBoard Nano, a sort of generic F411 board called the Black, that I'm just calling the Black Pill because it looks like the blue pills that you otherwise get. And hopefully soon the Meowbit, which will require some fixes to display I/O, which also hasn't quite knitted in yet. So I'm continuing that work this week, starting with the PyBoard Nano and figuring out some recent stuff that's just popped up with NeoPixel support and kind of these other things. So hopefully I'll be able to wrap those boards up this week and kind of get some new fun toys to play with on the STM side of CircuitPython pretty soon. I also did, just as a personal project, I actually managed to rig up the Uncanny Eyes project to OpenCV, Open Computer Vision, via a Feather intermediary so that the eyes actually follow humans. It will track your face and look at you creepily as you walk by. So that was just a fun thing, but hopefully we'll be expanding that in the future.
That is creepy, but that is excellent. All right, thank you. Next up is Jeff.
Last week, as we've talked about multiple times, I got MP3 playback to draft PR status, and that really leverages what is in the Adafruit MP3 library for Arduinos. I did some more work on the GCC9 pull request. Need to go check whether the latest build fully passed. I provided some performance measures for the background tasks PR, and it looks like the performance is the same. So I hope that means we can go ahead and get that one merged soon. I encountered a USB crash on NRF and proposed a kind of band-aid fix, but that wasn't acceptable, so we'll have to go back to the drawing board on that. And just this morning, I filed a PR to get us back 1 KB of code space on our most constrained builds by improving the compression of translated strings. This week, I guess I know I need to work more on the GCC9 PR, work more on MP3, work on a problem on NRF where if you're playing on PWM audio out with just one output configured, your stereo MP3 plays at half speed, and that's no good. I'm going to get up to speed on the STM32 port, and if time allows, I'm going to hopefully start working on audio for that. It looks like it has DACs, it looks like it has DMA, so hopefully it'll go smoothly, but you never know. And as for my ongoing fun projects, I need to actually order these Edgelit display PCBs and the parts to populate them. But I don't think I shared this image yet. I had really good success etching slides for microscopes with numerals at the local hackspace last week. And also, I'm reorganizing my home office. I finally got the keyboard tray and the monitor stand on the desk, and that's freed up a bunch of real estate. So, I can put 3 times as much junk and 3 times as many unfinished projects in my way at the same time. So that's me. Looks like a good week.
Excellent. All right, next up is Jerry.
Oh, there's the unmute button. Okay. Now I gotta find my notes. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Where'd it go? Last week I spent a bunch of time playing with all these new wonderful BLE demos and toys, and adapting as many as I could to get them to work with the new API, just to check them out. And submitted a couple of PRs to two of the newer ones they worked out fine. They were pretty easy changes. And I'm looking forward to this new iOS app whenever it gets released. That looks like it'll be fun. I did find an issue with the current master build, the CP5. It started with the at least with the beta 0. I don't know if it goes back before that. With the non-express boards that are NRF 52840, things like the PCA 10059 dongle, the Maker Diary board, and I don't know if it's all of them, but it's a pretty serious problem. If you try and delete files, you can end up corrupting the board pretty badly. Such that I've had to use my J-Link to get it back. So I put in a note in the weeds to go into a little more detail on that if anybody wants to hear more about it. But we can talk about that then. And yeah, I'm sure there were other things, but someday I'll learn to make notes about what it is I do.
All right. I'm going to cover next week, or?
Oh, sorry. I'll read ahead here. Yeah. Well, next week I'm just hoping to play a lot more with the BLE stuff and keep up with it. And I've got a bunch of my RFM 9X LoRa projects I want to get back to. They've been hanging for a while. And an aside to anyone, I don't know how I missed it, but there's this feature for the Raspberry Pis now, the remote controlling GPIOs that's been there for a while. I just never bothered to try it. And boy, is it nice. So anybody's looking for a new toy and hasn't tried that yet, it really is pretty cool. You can, from almost any device, from my Mac or from another Raspberry Pi, you can remotely access all the GPIO pins on another Raspberry Pi. And it's really slick.
Fancy.
It's really easy to.
Excellent. Thank you for finding that and pointing it out.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, we are done with status updates. Thanks, everyone. So next up is In the Weeds. And In the Weeds is an opportunity for more long-form discussions. Any kind of questions you think might involve a deeper explanation, that sort of thing. Pretty much open to whatever. But if you have an In the Weeds topic, please let us know as soon as possible. And that way we can get it added while we are discussing our other In the Weeds topics. So with that, I will turn it over to Jerry for the first In the Weeds topic.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I posted an issue on this to the CircuitPython repository, but and Dan did reply that I think he has a hint as to what may be the issue. So maybe it's a simple thing, it just needs attention. And maybe you can comment on that. But just wanted to point it out that what happened was, if you put CircuitPython 5 on one of these non-express NR52840 boards, at least the ones I've tried so far, and things work fine initially when you just load it on and start running things that are already on the board. But if you try and start deleting files, things get really squirrely. The board will reset, it'll drop the USB, and then if you do enough, like if you tried, I tried doing an erase file system, and that just really hosed up both the board and the host computer. I had to reboot my Unix, my Linux box as well, and the board was totally unresponsive. I had to reflash the bootloader and everything to it. So it's a pretty bad situation if you start playing with these boards.
That's interesting because I knew that there was this, what I thought was a long-standing problem, that there was overlap between microcontroller.nvm and the file system. I'm not sure of that, but I think it's a possibility. But what you're doing, it might be some, if it hosed the host computer too, it might be a tiny USB issue.
Right. Yeah, it seemed like, I think the host computer was on. I just didn't wait long enough. It took a long time. Finally, when I tried later times, the host computer finally did come back, but it could take quite a while.
I'll try to see what there is, what
Okay.
changes there have been. But it worked in beta 4. I mean, alpha 4.
I'm not
alpha
sure.
5.
Actually, I haven't gone back to do any kind of
Okay.
test where it first failed. I did try it on beta 0 and it failed. And then I had been trying it with just the current master, and it fails there.
Yeah. So,
but it
the
works on
question is, where was this?
4.1. Fine, no problem.
It works on 4.1. Yeah. So, but there are a lot of changes in between those, especially the tiny USB. So,
but I did, once if you tried to do the erase file system, then again the board was totally, you could double clicking would not go back to the bootloader. Gave all sorts of error messages in the DMESG. So,
okay. All right.
Yeah,
that's a clue. Yeah. So if you have time, try some earlier versions. But if that's too much trouble, then just
okay. I'll see what I can do with it.
It's on the list. Yeah.
And I tried it on both on the dongle and the Maker Diary dongle as well, and they both responded the same way.
Yeah, I would. They're really essentially the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so I just wanted to put out, and there was somebody I was helping over the weekend who was trying things on a dongle, and I quickly told him to stop.
Okay.
Once you get to a certain point, it's pretty hard to recover it.
The only other thing I would add is I kind of would like us to focus on the feature work that we have remaining just for the next couple of weeks, because I think we're close. Like once we get bonding, and then if we want BLE MIDI, I think there's a few changes with the characteristic buffer stuff to do. But I would love to get us to the point where we were heads down on bugs, so that theoretically, like by the end of December, we're feature complete and the APIs are where we think they'll be, and then we can spend January like really burning down our bug list.
That sounds okay to me. I mean, I think this also might have to do with the speed of the internal flash, and it's not applying back pressure to USB properly or something.
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, I'm not going to start working on this right away.
Yeah, and I'm not. It's not a problem in terms of I can live without these boards, and sure, it's just, but it was kind of surprise, and if people start using them, they are going to run into issues.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds bad enough that we wouldn't want to call 5.0 stable before it's fixed.
Exactly. Okay,
but I just like with finding issues, it's hard to balance like completing stuff versus getting kind of distracted by issues as they come in.
Sure. No, and it wasn't trying to up its priority. It was just trying to clarify what was going on.
Yeah, totally. That's all the issues. I really appreciate them, but yeah.
And on the next thing, I had a question, and maybe Jeff already answered it. To go back and look with the GCC 9. So it looks like are those, that's the tar GZ, are those binaries for those?
Right, there are binaries inside, so should be ready to go. But you asked about pies, and I don't know if AR64 runs on pies.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll take a look at it.
ARM-HF or something.
Yeah, I'll have to go. I can take a look at the site. I was going to go dig into it, just ran out of time. So just curious, because it's something I with the Pi 4s now. I really the Pi actually is a pretty viable building environment, and it'd be nice for it to be supported. So my other question about it was, if you make this change, are you will there be changes to the make files and the build environment so that it will no longer work with the 7.2 release?
No.
The way it's written right now in the pull request, when it's doing the build on GitHub Actions, it downloads this tarball instead of downloading the deb. And there are some changes to optimizations to make the most constrained boards fit still, because they increased inlining to make C++ people happy because they can't live without it.
Okay, but if someone doesn't,
none of the code is changed, so it should still work with either compiler.
okay, great.
Except for the new flags, right?
Well, that's what I was worried about. If the new flags are in the make files, are they going to cause problems in the old builds?
The new flags are all understood by the old compiler.
Okay,
Perfect.
great. That's really my main question. Thanks.
Yeah. Long term, I know that Scott has said once we're on a new compiler, we don't bend over backwards to support an old compiler.
Sure.
But if there's a compelling reason, we probably can.
Okay. Well, I'll grab the PR and try it and see if I can break something. So, all right. Thanks.
All right. I'll wait for your comments.
All things point to yes, you can break it. And that's a good thing.
All right. Next up, we have audio I/O discussion with Jeff and Higher Effect.
Hi. Tell me what you know.
Well, yeah. So I just wanted to sync up on what you were, what kind of the base prerequisites you're looking at there, because as far as I can tell, you'll be able to use existing DAC stuff as maybe a reference, but I don't think that the analog out has ever been able to use just the actual DAC common HAL component. It needs to use really tightly DMA tied HAL. So I was just wondering what your approach was going to be there.
Right. So when I did the PWM and the I2S on NRF, that's basically what I did. I looked at the audio out as a reference, and then had to figure out how to do things like set up the DMA so that it was clocked out at the right rate. And that's also pretty much how it was. The implementation for SAMD, they're independent. It's not code reuse. There's a little bit of setup that can be shared between them, but that is probably about it. And I haven't really, I've looked at the datasheet a little bit. I've loaded one firmware on it, but that's the extent of my work with the Feather, with the with that chip on it, whichever one it is.
Yeah. Have you worked with the ST series, just kind of the HAL and low-level libraries before?
No, I haven't. So
well,
high-level overviews are always helpful, and I will sure just throw out a question on the channel if I'm feeling it all stuck.
I think, from what I can tell here, the two things that would need to be done, I guess, are I2S for analog in, and then just this DMA tied DAC for analog out. Is that right?
Analog in would be an
where
ADC.
I'm starting.
Like I2S in is separate.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm happy to send you basically my kind of like pack on of just kind of reference material for the STM if you want.
Okay. Sure.
Which is just like all of the stuff, so you don't have to like go trawling through the ST website weeds, which can be kind of annoying.
Sure. Yeah.
For all the details you want. So I've got like the HAL and LL documentation is like really the crucial thing to have. And then also I don't know if STM32 Arduino has implementations for that. MicroPython can be kind of a spotty reference for that kind of thing. If you just want to look at other like I2S or audio related DAC applications. So MicroPython's kind of a spotty reference sometimes, but often STM32 Arduino's implementations are actually better, or at least more comprehensive or comprehensible. If not more feature complete, at least kind of more readable, just because MicroPython is supporting so many STM32s, not just the F4, but like the F7s and the F1s, and they put in a bunch of different stuff, and they've got all these different interleaved APIs. So STM32 Arduino can be a little closer. So anyway, I'm happy to help send you some of that stuff.
So a piece of code that I had found, I dropped a link in the channel. It's doing DMA to the DAC. It kind of looks like a good starting place for study. But if you take a look at that and say, oh, no, don't follow this guy's style, then I will look for something else. So if you could just, take a few minutes to look at that and give me a yes or a no on whether that is anywhere in the neighborhood of what you would like to see, that would be great. And yeah, I will be studying your code more for sure.
I mean, from my perspective, like I'm pretty comfortable using the HAL and kind of like I'm comfortable with how ST does things in general. But my big problem is that I'm not an audio guy at all. So I've actually never done an audio related project. So I really don't. I'm not familiar with sort of the contextual approach, the kind of the high level approach to doing audio. So in terms of collaboration on this, I Scott, obviously whatever you think is a good priority here, but I'm generally going to be useful on the writing driver stuff, but I wouldn't know where to start in terms of the audio material. So that might be a good kind of point at which to trade tasks.
That's fair enough.
I think we're at the right place. Like Jeff has a lot of background in the audio stuff to begin with. Like there's a whole lot of shared mechanics around the DMA and the background stuff that Jeff's worked in already, and that's why we were thinking having him take it on in the STM as well. So if you can just like do exactly as you're doing of pointing Jeff and steering him in the right direction for STM, I think that's exactly what we want.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll start by sending you just kind of like the pack of starting stuff for ST, and I would just recommend taking a look at probably just the I2C or I2S reference implementations too off of CubeMX. Have you used CubeMX before?
I did use it briefly, but it's been like 5 years.
It
was a long time ago.
It's a very spotty tool in terms of actually referencing it for implementation, but it's decent for setup, and it kind of shows you, like, because ST expects you to do it a very certain way that we aren't doing at all at the port.
Right.
And so it's a good way of seeing like how they want you to do it, so that you can flaunt them and do your own thing. So yeah, usually you just end up like copying like the macros and stuff, but which are important to know. You get to see the nice base setup, but otherwise it's secondary to something like MicroPython or STM32 in terms of being a good reference. So anyway,
cool.
I look forward to working with you on this. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Excellent. And last up, we have a topic from Crayola.
So this one just happened to me, and it's probably going to keep happening more often to others, is that for one of the translations, there is not enough flash for one of the specific builds for the Circuit Playground Express, and wondering if we have a strategy for dealing with that, because if we even consider merging, it will break the build, is 148 bytes short for that particular translation and build.
Well, I've got great news. I think we're going to get back 1 kilobyte from a pull request that I filed earlier today. So that'll give us breathing room for at least your pull request and 2 more after that.
Okay, so I'll keep an eye out for that pull request to get merged at some point and then rebase against that, I presume.
Yeah, that's one strategy. You could rebase or you could merge master after that goes in.
Merge at this point because it's a bit of a spaghetti between merges and rebases at this point in that branch. I'm tempted to actually squash the entire history of that branch.
The other thing I would say is I think I am hoping with Pixel Buff that we actually do drop our frozen sizes down.
That's a good point, because I did not switch the frozen target to the smaller NeoPixel and smaller dot star yet.
Yeah, I'd be kind of curious to see how much we gain back from that. And I somehow this NeoPixel spy thing just passed me by, so that's not the way I would do it, and so I'll start some conversations about how to do that differently.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that too, because it was frustrating to see that suddenly pop up, and it's going to grow the code size for NeoPixel everywhere.
Right.
If it was in a different file, then in like just as another subclass that we can copy in for that one case, that would work, or another
Yeah.
module completely that's based on NeoPixel.
Right. So yeah, I will. I see Carter's not in the meeting right now, so I'll ask about what that background is, and yeah, generally we don't want more than one class, especially if the two classes are orthogonal. But this is kind of a pattern that we saw from the very beginning with CircuitPython, where we have like one class and then we have an I2C version and a SPI version. And I really want to move away from that. I want to we've really benefited from having composable, meaning like if you have I2C or SPI, you wrap that in the same API and then pass it into the thing that's dealing with it.
Yeah, and that actually is because NeoPixel's API is so old. It's kind of hard to change without breaking so many examples. But I found a way to sort of in the NeoPixel as a subclass of Pixel Buff, the init, I sort of composed, but not quite. It's a subclass of NeoPixel with a different init that calls the majority of the code that got moved to a configure method. So it's sort of composable, and we could do some small changes to make them composable, even if they have slightly different signatures. But of course, we have to convince Pylint it's actually not. We're not doing things wrong. We know what we're doing.
Yeah. Hashtag Pylint disable.
Yeah, I know. I try to avoid it if at all possible, because you always get asked why.
Yeah, it's a good rule of thumb. But it's the backstop for us.
Yep.
All right. Now we know what we're going to be doing with that. That's good to hear. With that, we are over an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. This has been the CircuitPython Weekly for December 2nd, 2019. This meeting has been recorded, and the recording will be put on YouTube as well as various podcast services. So if you are listening later, thank you for listening in. I want to thank everyone who participated today and everyone who had notes for us to read off who couldn't make it. We will be hosting this meeting again next week at the same time, so feel free to join us. Everyone is welcome. And that's about it. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Later, everyone.